When passion and purpose collide, monumental success happens. And we have one of the most successful chiropractors in the industry who discovered her passion and how to make a ton of impact, transformational impact, and a lot of money while doing it. Welcome to the Chiropractor's Edge show and podcast, Dr. Amy Spolestra.
Yay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Always happy and excited and honored to do anything with you, Jake. You're just incredible. And I'm learning about this group, and this group sounds really incredible. So really happy to be here and meet some people here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So your name is known. You know, if you were Amy Smith, I think you'd still be known pretty well, but Spolestra, everyone, because everyone like, how do you spell it? I got to look this lady up. Yeah, I'm happy your last name isn't just as a generic name, because it really sticks. Everyone's like, Amy Spolestra, Amy Spolestra.
Oh, that's good. I've always thought, like, I still have to think how to spell that last. I've been married to my husband for 15 years now, and I'm like, oh yeah, Spolestra. Sometimes I have to focus on it. Everyone says Spolestra, but it's Spolestra, and you've always gotten it right.
That's right. That's right. Well, for those of you who may not know her or don't know her well, the value that she's going to create for you. Amy found her passion with kids, neurodevelopmental disorders. She has a book coming out here soon, which we can't wait to get out to you. But through her focus group, through Brain Blossom, I actually use in almost my everyday talk, because you've taught me how to communicate the brain very clearly and concisely and very effectively so that it makes sense. People will always ask a question, hey, does chiropractic do this, or does the brain do that? I always say, well, here's what we know.
Yes. Yeah.
I would always try starting something different, but you've given me so many strategies and given us so many strategies on how to communicate the brain and how children really develop and grow, and the connection between the doctor and the child, the patient and the parent and the doctor, and that whole trifecta so efficiently. And I would love to talk about that. So we have a lot of docs just starting their careers right now. We have a lot of docs who are discovering that what they're doing is working very well and they want to scale it. We have a lot of doctors discovering that what they're doing isn't their passion. How did you create such an empire? Like, where did this begin?
Well, it really, first thing to say is I love that you've taken some of those gems from some of the lectures that you've heard me give, because it is really all about finding the simplicity on the far side of complexity. And I feel like that is my superpower from where it all began. Like, if I'm like, because I've never been like, oh, I'm the smartest person in the room, or I have to be the smartest person in the room and all stuff, but I'm interested in everything, and I'm a thinker, and I want to learn about everything. I want to know why, and I have to sort through. I love living in the complexity, especially with neurology and neurodevelopment, but then you have to find the simplicity in order to make it work in practice and get the best really clinical results and be able to do it in business, and then of course scale it. So all of that what I think is my true gift, that was a gift given to me, came from the struggle in my early life. And that was that I had a brother who really struggled. My brother, I was from if you've heard me speak, I've probably shared this story, and you've heard it, but it really starts with, I was from just a typical standard American family. My mom's a teacher, my dad's an optometrist, and my brother had challenges. And my brother is 18 months older than me. We're basically growing up like twins. He's my best friend, and he had behavioral challenges and anger and gut issues and learning challenges, dyslexia, all these things. And my dad became a specialized optometrist called a neurooptometrist, and I grew up as not a chiro kid, but a neuro kid. I grew up learning ridiculous amounts of complex neurology at a really young age, and I had to, thinking back, first of all, I didn't know other kids weren't learning those things. And second of all, kind of like a chiro kid. Our kids don't really know that other kids don't get checked and why they get checked, and don't know. I was talking to my 6-year-old the other night at bedtime, Snuggles, about innate intelligence and universal intelligence, because she was asking me, hey, Mom, why does if you're saying that we grow like this, how come I come from an egg and a tree comes from a seed and a tree becomes a tree and I become me? And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to talk. Okay, let's get into this. Yeah. so, you know, that's a chiro kid, right? And I was a neuro kid. And, but the thing about that was I was, even from a very young age, like 6, was getting taught and immersed in this neurology and this neurooptometric viewpoint and all of this. And I had to find the simplicity in it, I think, to like understand what my world was about. And so all through my life, that's really shaped me and going like, I'm interested, but what does this really mean? And what's this, how do I get to the simplicity in that? And not jumping to the simplicity, but being able to sort through the complexity to find the simplicity, but understand that all of this is really complex. And I think that is really like our gift in the focus world and the work that we do is we don't neglect either one of those things. But the challenge I see happening in so many offices is that they may like live in the, you know, the complexity of what we do, and they never find, but how do I explain that simply? How do I put that in procedure simply? How do I make really simple, based on the complex work and understanding, simple, you know, exam processes and all of this to make it actually work in business?
Yes.
And you have to have that to then be able to scale it, you know? Well, I went all over, but that's where it started.
No, you brought up some huge points. I mean, number one, we hear if you can't describe it like a 5-year-old could, if you can't describe it in 15 seconds, you don't know it. You don't truly understand it. You know, I'm being coached as I'm starting some new businesses, and I thought I had a pretty awesome handle on one of my businesses, and I couldn't explain it clearly to my coach. He's like, are you listen to yourself? Like, are you listening to how you're describing it to me? Like, I'm confused. Like, are you confused? I'm like, I'm totally confused. So I don't know it well enough. So, okay. So you're teaching that.
Yes, that's right.
There you go. So
is important because so many people never have a mentor or have the realization or have a spouse that tells them, or have somebody that they can say, hey, I'm going to be vulnerable here. And I'm going to tell you, here's my goals, here's what I'm doing, I can see that's the vision, all these things, and here's the description, for example, or here's what I'm doing, why am I not getting the results, or whatever, and be able to say, so you give me your feedback, and I'm not going to take it personally, I'm going to be vulnerable and say, who are I'm going to trust the people that I've chosen to be around me because I've picked them because they're congruent with my values and my mission, and if that is true, then you have to be able to take their feedback, like you just said, and go, okay, so I'm just not there yet, but I got this really valuable piece of information that's going to help me get to the simplicity.
Yes. And that's where, you know, a lot of us, there's danger in tomorrow, you guys. There's major danger saying, you know, hey, tomorrow I'll do this. Well, your future self is fallible. Don't trust your future self with things you're not doing right now. People say, you know, I'll get a coach or a mentor once I've grown and done this and done that. Do it now. The greatest athletes that have ever lived, the most successful people who've ever lived, always had mentors and coaches around them. And we do need cheerleaders around us, but we need challengers. We need people who can challenge to help us only get better. I remember running track for a living, and at one point I was number one. I was. But I always wanted to be my best. I remember my coach said, so if you want to be your best, you need to run completely different. I'm going to have to actually change the way you run 100%. I'm like, change the way I run? Like, how do you, how do I change the way I run? And it got better. I had to learn a whole different way to do it, but man, it was way better. So to the docs that are here, that have a passion for an art within chiropractic, either whether it be a technique or kids with neurodevelopmental disorders or mamas with migraines, or just being able to help people to fully connect. Where do they need to begin? So a lot of us, as we begin to build our passion and grow that and to understand it, most people start marketing before they've actually built their brand. How did you build your brand? How did you begin to do that?
Well, I mean, I have two different things, two different main businesses. And the first one is Spolestra Family Chiropractic, I call it my brick and mortar practice. We've been here 15 years, and I came out of school. First of all, one point on the coaching and mentoring, I think that, to your point, is absolutely critical, and you must have coaches. And I always look for coaches. I was an athlete as well, and that molded me in my younger life. And then I realized, well, what's different about my athletic life as opposed to my life and my business? And the reality is nothing. It's just manifested my values and my mission differently and my goals differently in the business realm or in the athletic realm. And what I needed, what I recognized is very early in practice, 6 months in, I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a mentor in the first 6 months. And I realized, hey, I need a mentor. I need a mentor who's going to challenge me. So what I found with mentors, to speak on that, is that I would hire somebody that made me uncomfortable, and that they were congruent with my core values, with who I am, congruent with my mission, and that made me uncomfortable and challenged me and made me nervous when I'd get on the phone with them, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, those are the ones I need. And as soon as, and this happened at multiple times in my career, and it's fine, those coaches served me perfectly, wonderfully. I'm thankful for all of them at each step of my career and of my path, even though I did move on to another one several times, because that was the perfect one for that version of Amy at that time and the growth that I needed. But what I found was, when my coach stopped challenging me, stopped saying, hey, I know you're number one, but we need to rework this a little bit, and making me uncomfortable, when that stopped happening, it was time for me to go. And that was fine. And I was loving and thankful, and I don't have any ill feelings. I'm so thankful, because each one of them was the one that I needed every step of the way. And that's really important to me.
So before we get into branding, I want to dive into that a little bit more. Yeah. So there sounds like there had to have been a conversation that you had with yourself, but how do you get to the point where, once you've been challenged and you're reaping the fruits of your success, how do you realize you're not being challenged? How do you realize, because we love people who agree with us. Mm-hmm. We love people who want to talk about us. We love that. How did you realize that you weren't being challenged? How did you actually realize that, and to know that you had to change? Was it a conversation you had with yourself, with your husband, with coaches? How did you find that out?
I think when I became too comfortable. And comfort is great, and we have to have both, rest and comfort, and and growth and challenge. And I will tell you, at the first time, I was maybe a year and a half into practice, 2 years into practice. First of all, I started my practice 4 days after I graduated.
Amazing.
With no plan. I had no plan. I was just I'm going to be a pediatric family chiropractor, and I'm going to be a cash practice, and we're moving to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, so North Idaho, 25 years old. My husband and I got in he's not a chiropractor. We got in a Penske truck from Sherman, literally the day of graduation. We drove to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, where he had gone out and gotten us a rental a month before. And we had already signed a lease on a location. And 4 days after graduation, I started to practice. And I was like, let's go. And so I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to do this. And I was figuring it out, and I was figuring it out, and I'm a learner and a thinker. And so I was figuring it out, and I was lonely at first. And I was like, why am I trying to figure this out on my own? There's got to be somebody that can coach me on this. And I didn't know about coaching in the profession or anything like that. And then at 6 months in, I was so that was the first step of I need a mentor. And so I'm not this is how I've done my whole life. Why do I not have a mentor now? And I need a mentor. And so I hired my first mentor, and then, as I shared before, but I think, to answer your question of when did I know it was time to go to the next stage, it was, honestly, to be very, very honest, I'd get comfortable and I would get a little depressed. I would get a little and not really depressed, but not settled. I would feel And I would look, and the first time this happened to me, I was like a year and a half into practice, and I was like hitting these big goals, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm collecting all this money. I'm helping all these people. I'm doing this cash practice. I'm love my husband. We bought a house, all these things. And I was like, is this what I'm doing the whole rest of my life? And I was like, and then I felt guilty about that, because I was like, this is good. I've built something good. I've hit my goals. And why am I uneasy? Like, why am I unsettled? And I remember calling my dad, who's, very successful clinical guy, and, had all these different ventures and stuff. And I said, like, hey, have you ever felt this way? And he started laughing. And I was, because that's my relationship with my dad, starts laughing. I'm like, okay, I'm telling you, I'm kind of sad. Like, and he's like, well, yeah, I have felt this way. And you need to make sure you have a mentor who's challenging you, and you need to develop more skill or new technique, learn more technique, study more, jump into something that's going to stimulate you to have growth in your mind and in your life in some way, because that is what you need to do your whole life. And that was so profound for me, because it was like that first time I went, I'm comfortable. I hit all these goals. This is what I was striving towards. And now what? And I think that is it was a lonely place to be, because I didn't know who to talk to about that. And then it was a exciting place to be, because it was like, oh, this is okay. And I can keep growing. Right. And that's what started my okay, so now it's time to integrate this neurology, this neurooptometric work in with chiropractic, and figure out how to put these pieces together. And that became very stimulating. And we started to develop the focus program and have all this success clinically with it. And then on and on. And now we teach chiropractors and certify them. We have the Brain Blossom programs, and we have over 150 doctors internationally, 6 countries, 27 states, doing the work that we developed. That conversation was my jumping off point of going, I could just do this for the rest of my life, but there's like an itch inside me that I want to do more. Or I could do the stuff that makes me uncomfortable and is a bit scary, like a lot bit scary, and get to here.
Yes.
And I think either is fine. If it depends on the person, right? Yeah.
You had to figure out what it was that really lit you up, what lights you up. We have docs who say, doc, I want to stroke out on a patient at like 106 years old. I'm going to die in my practice. And that's their passion, right? Yeah. But they know what they want. I have a guy we're coaching with right now. He's like, doc, I want to retire at 30.
Yeah.
He goes, and here's what retirement, he's going to rewire, but here's what that looks like. So it's knowing what you want. With this podcast and with the other group that I get to interview some incredible people in this world, and it is so humbling to hear, because you put your heroes on these pedestals and they're human, but when you hear what you literally just said, it is out of the playbook of success. I get comfortable, and it's funny, was I down? Was I a little bit down when I wasn't very successful? Yeah, but I wasn't depressed. I got depressed when we were at a level of super success, and I found I wasn't achieving who I was supposed to be achieving as a person. Most people in life, as Les Brown says, most people in life fail not because they aim too high and miss, they aim too low and hit. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no. And I'm not saying that just being a great doctor is low, but you have to understand what it is that lights you up within your practice. And when it comes to a coach, we have a lot of people who say, oh, I tried that person, didn't work. And as you dive into it, someone's like, yeah, you know what, you're right. They weren't the right fit for you. But right. This person is, that can challenge you, or you didn't implement a dang thing they told you to do.
Right.
They're an attorney, you have an attorney telling you, don't do this. You're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then you do it and get hit hard. Like, well, you didn't take my counsel. You didn't listen. You didn't challenge. The groups that you and I are both involved in, we have, from the Black Diamond Club to some other wonderful things, they've been teaching the last several years what is coming around the corner, what is now here, and the type of patients we should be, how to build and develop our practice. That's why the Chiropractor's Edge was developed, was to allow people to have a higher level of success and even more success. But that's the understanding you have to have, is knowing what it is that makes you drive, or that drives you, and being able to have those self check-in points, having a conversation with your spouse. Hey, when you Like, when you see me as happy, what does that look like to you? You know, when you see me successful, what does that look like to you? But having, you know, you need to be on board with your spouse. Your spouse needs to be on board with you and your vision, and with them and their vision, in order to achieve that. How as you, and again, we'll get into branding here in a little bit. But
there's so much gold here I want to talk about. Like, this is part of the conversation. Yeah.
So, as you, because you have a very deep connection with your husband. All the events we've gone to, from Colorado to South Carolina to Massachusetts, to, we've seen your husband there supporting you, and I know there's had to be multiple conversations, because he, you know, on one aspect, it's like, man, he supports, he's a cheerleader, but what you have shared is he's a challenger for you as well.
Yes.
What's had to happen for you guys to get to this level of success and coherence?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Coherence. So I think this is a really important topic, particularly for chiropractors, and for chiropractors who have a non-chiropractic spouse, because my husband is not a chiropractor. And we were those people that like actually went to chiropractic school. I always say we went, so people get confused, but I'm like, he went, but he didn't. He supported us. And we weren't married then, but we moved to South Carolina. We got married, and we met in undergrad, got married in South Carolina. And, you know, so I was going through chiropractic school, and we, you know, we're one of those rare couples that, like, you know, we're still married 15 years later. But, because you know how chiropractic school does, you know, what does to relationships. And I think the reason that it does that, the reason you see a lot of people splitting up and pairing up with chiropractors and these type of things, is because we are developing, we're like in this world of like, oh, this is a new paradigm, and I'm fully on board. And here's this spouse out here that's like not in the day-to-day of this, and going like, wait, you're growing in this way and I'm over here. And that's the same with business, right? It's the same with, as you're growing a business and you're in it, if your spouse isn't in it, and, you know, how do you keep the relationship strong, keep working together, and all of that. And one of the biggest things is, for us, has been really making sure that we have defined what our life looks like, right? What we want our life to look like. And our life looks really different than most people's. Our marriage looks really different than most people's. Like, a lot of people, to be quite honest, are uncomfortable about what our marriage looks like, because I am, you know, speaking and achieving, and what people look at as like, oh, she's doing all this stuff in business and he's not. But the reality is, we are completely partners, and he's doing all of these things that may not look like the typical role of, you know, what people would think like the man in the relationship, where the husband would be doing. But I could not do what I do without him, and vice versa. And we very much respect each other, and we've developed this vision by creating what together in the beginning. And we always revisit this and go, are we living this life that we want? Are we making the right choices together? We develop this by creating the vision of what we want for our life, literally defining, what do we want our home to look like? What do we want our schedules to be like in the day? And even if it seemed like a really far out there idea when we first said it, we really are living it now. And we define that, and then we define together our core values. It sounds so simple, and it sounds so cheesy to some people who haven't done this, but we do this in our businesses, but we also have to do this in our families and our relationships with our spouses, so that we say, like, listen, here's a perfect example. Our top value is family, integrity. Third one is simplicity. Listen, my brain is not simple. I love complexity, right? But we had to, and my husband's very organized and, you know, clean, and he's very logical and linear and analytical. And we had to put simplicity in there, because I was like, even though that's not one of my innate gifts to move towards simplicity. Just like in practice, we have to find the simplicity. I find more peace when I'm making choices, when we are making choices as a family to move towards more simplicity, whether that's financial choices, whether it's choosing a mentor, whether it's what we choose for our daughter. That's one of our values. And so we find that when we're making decisions or when we're feeling disconnected, we're often having contradictions to our core values. And so then we're having friction, we're irritating each other, or whatever it is like that happens in a marriage. We can come back together and we can say, okay, where are we off track here, right? And it's not your fault or my fault, but where are we off track? And that's how we challenge each other, both of us, to have growth, but growth that isn't just like, uncontrolled growth is cancer, right? We don't just want to have growth. We want to have growth that is congruent and towards what we want and how we want to live and who we want to be.
Uncontrolled growth is cancer.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So one thing that we've discovered, that I've discovered personally, as we, as you research, like what makes a master marriage, what makes a super successful business, and it all comes to what you just said. A lot of us, I know I have been guilty of this, and I do get guilty of this, is you say, if I can't read my spouse's mind, I'm a failure. So we can't have conversations because it means I can't ask these questions because it means I don't know. And it's just the opposite. When I ask my wife a question, she's like, oh my gosh, thank you for asking that question. Instead of just assuming that we want sushi for dinner when she's had a really long day, and when I cook, I buy food. That's how I cook sometimes. But asking questions, right? The other day we with one of our members of our group, he was talking about his associate. I was like, awesome, you have an associate, tell me about it. He's like, yeah, the other day she told a patient, hey, I'll see you whenever it hurts again. And I was like, what? We don't, like, she's like, well, what are you talking about? He's like, isn't that what we do here? I was like, so what does your training show? He goes, well, we haven't done training on that. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I just assumed she knew. I assume she knows this. Well, why? So now he's like, it seems so obvious. I got to do some training. Well, why would you not do that with the relationships that matter most in your life? Because all business problems, every single one of them, are personal problems in disguise. What's happening within the walls of your own home? What's happening within the 18-inch gap between your head and your heart? When those things are screwed up, you can have a level of success in life, but you will never be fully fulfilled. And then the things that matter most are gonna break apart and die down. So you have to have those conversations. My wife and I soon we're reverse engineering again what it is that we want. And we've done it on some smaller levels, but now we're like, we need to really define. And just again, as you build a personal relationship with your spouse or your partner, your loved one, with your family, things that matter most, it then begins to shine within your practice, and you can focus on the things that allow you to really take your passion and put it on purpose and then to have success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, I always like to point out the secret feelings that people are having that they may feel like ashamed to talk about, especially in our profession. Like, oh, I have to just say it's all perfect all the time. And I let, all these things. And I think especially being a woman in the practice, I mean, both, but in the profession. And I like to share that, like, for example, practice can be hard sometimes, but then you have your vision, you have your mission, you go, what do I need? What am I missing? What choices did I make that were not congruent? So you have this system. I love systems, right? Because they're finding simplicity. If we don't have a system of how to handle a symptom of a challenge in a practice or a challenge in a marriage or whatever, if we don't have a system to find the solution, to then find the simplicity to fix it, then you're just like randomly throwing darts at a dartboard with your eyes closed. Like it doesn't, and then what happens is you're chasing all the shiny things, right? Whether it's in your marriage or whether it's in your business, you're chasing all the things that seem like, well, that'll fix the problem. It's just the exact contradiction of what we talk about in our philosophy of like, don't just treat the symptom and be mechanistic, but then we do it in our lives and in our businesses, as opposed to saying like, okay, so a symptom is always a window of something else, right? And so it's secondary to something else. I'm having a retention issue. I'm having these kids that come in. I'm not, these parents of kids with behavioral learning socialization challenges, they're so hard to work with. And I hear this all the time. I don't know. I don't know if I want to work with that population, even though I know we can help them and it would be great. But because the parents, they're flaky and they don't make appointments and all stuff. It's like, well, what's this? That's a symptom. So what are you doing in your practice that's creating that? And maybe it's because you don't know enough about their neurology to develop systems and communication that works for them, right? And so we teach a lot about that, but it's the same in your marriage. And I think in our profession, especially, like, there's a lot of this pressure to say, like, no, my marriage is perfect and my kids are perfect. They're not having challenges. And I'm like, listen, my kid melts down. I teach parents and other professionals and chiropractors all about behavioral learning, socialization, and brain-based challenges and how to support with clinical aspects and parenting and education and all of this. That's what I do. And guess whose kid melts down in the grocery store every once in a while? Dr. Amy's kid, you know what I mean? And because that's normal. And it's about then what we do with that scenario. And we have to know more, find simplicity in it to be able to go, like, I'm not ashamed of this. This is my child. This is my marriage. There's a challenge right now. What do I do from here?
So, I mean, what an opportunity for success. I mean, you just taught a clinical pearl right there. If you just said, oh, my kids are perfect, they don't deal with that. Patient comes in, oh, my kid has an earache. Oh, my kid's never, I always say, well, my kids have never had earaches, actually. But if you were to think of something that was able to, well, my kid melted down at the grocery store last week, as opposed to my kid's perfect. You've created talking points. You've just made yourself accessible to them. You've put yourself on a level where they go, okay, she's there too. She's there with me. She gets me. She understands me. Well, it's the same with business. As we look at your huge, massive level of success today, and I can't even wait to see how much more it grows even more. But it's because you have these principles. Anytime I talk to someone who's at a level of life where you are, we talk about great things, tricks of the trade, little pearls. Again, you guys, to get to know Amy, we're going to have her information below. You want to implement, especially if you want to make an impact in this part of life, you need to jump into her programs, because she's paid the dummy tax. She's learned and paid a fortune in time and in money, and in order to discover this. So you got to talk to her about that. But most of everyone, when we ask, hey, what's your key to success? Every one of them, they don't say, oh, well, I won the lottery, or, oh, it's when I had my $100,000 first day. They say, oh, it's when I was able to take lunch off and have dinner with my husband, or lunch with my husband, and we had this deep conversation that needed to happen, and we were able to do it. And I was able to, the practice didn't get hurt. It actually uplifted us. It's those moments where I was able to have a deep conversation to take care of what needed to take care of at home, because the branding's going to happen, the building, the scaling's going to happen, but that has to happen first. Mm-hmm. You and your relationship with yourself and those around you has to happen first.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time when we were building the Focus Academy, where we do the training and certification and offer Brain Blossom and all of that to chiropractors. And we're building that. And I had hired my coach, Dr. Sean Dill, about 6 years ago. I think 6 years ago now, 5 or 6 years ago. And, I had said, hey, we've got what we've got going, and we have a lot of proof of concept here. We've been doing it for a decade, working with this chiropractic foundation and some neuro in addition when we need it. In our chiropractic practice, and we're having great results. We're getting a lot of colleagues that are bringing me their kids to help them with them, and they want me to teach this to the profession. I was really resistant because I was like, oh no, I just want to do this in my practice. And I was just like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to teach it. I didn't want to do that. And then I started to realize, based on the feedback from my friends and colleagues, of like, you actually have to. And I went, okay, is this congruent? Like, do I want this? And I went, yeah, you know what? I can teach this, and I can have a bigger impact and help more people this way. And the thing that's holding me back, the reason I keep saying no, is not because it's incongruent with what I actually want or our vision or our values. The thing that kept me saying no was my fear. And my husband was like, it's time to get over that. And so, you know, talking about having a challenger, and so, but like supporting and loving, and but like, go now, you need to do this. And so I hired Sean. I had never met Sean. I had heard my buddy Steve Tullius. I called him up, and we weren't even friends then. I just called him. I was like, hey, I hear you're doing something in the neurodevelopmental space in chiropractic too. I just think we should be friends. And he's like, I don't know how to take my work from point A and my practice to point B to scale it. And you know, any thoughts? And he's like, well, you need to meet my friend Sean Dill. I'm like, who? And he's like, yeah. So I talked to Sean. I'm like, hey, I need someone to take me. I need a business person, not a chiropractic person. That's what I was saying. And I was like, but you're a chiropractor, you know, and point A to point B, like, I love chiropractic, but like, I need a business person. And I talked with him, and I was like, I think this guy can help me. And so then the rest is history. But the moment, this is what made me want to tell this story, the moment that I knew, I was like, oh, this is that first moment, was the day. Now, my husband helped me develop focus. He was our first neurodeflective retraining coach, like, because he has a background in neuroeducation, all this stuff. And so we were in this practice together for many, many years, even though he's not a chiropractor. And the first day we were out of the office, our office was running, you know, our team was running because we have solid systems. They're doing all the same work that we do, chiropractic folks, all of this stuff was going, you know, it's profitable, it's happy, healthy, abundant, healthy people. And we didn't have any other place to go. We were working at the public library. We were like the two of us on like a Wednesday afternoon working on focus educational services, where we do our certification, the Focus Academy, and developing. I remember texting a picture to Sean Dill, our coach, and I went, look at us, like, we made it. We're doing this. Our practice is doing this, and we're doing this. We're developing this other thing to scale. And that was that moment of like, gives me chills of like, look, we're doing it. This thing I never thought we could do. Yeah.
So powerful. I mean, we truly underestimate what can happen in 5 years. I mean, if you gave me that time frame, and I can put that time frame in my head, but it's like oh, this hasn't been 15 years. No, it's been, you know, 5, 6, 7, right? Amy, thank you so much for being on with us today. Obviously, we're going to put your information below. Wherever you guys consume social media, Dr. Amy Focus, and what are the other social media handles where people can find you?
So Dr. Amy Focus is our main, like, Facebook, and then Instagram for the Focus Academy. So that's the place, whether you're a parent or you want to share that with parents, it gives, or a doctor, it gives really brain-based simplicity, little lessons. We also have a free Facebook group for chiropractors. It's Focus for neurodeflective disorders for chiropractors. We can share that. I think you've shared that, but we can share group. And so we have that. And then we have gofocusacademy.com is our website, where you can kind of see what our offerings are and join our certification series, which I offer that training. It's a mix of online and then one in-person seminar. And we offer that once or twice a year.
So you can join the link we're going to have below here. If you go to the chiropractorsedge.com, we refer to Amy, so we have an opportunity there for you guys to be able to link and connect with her. Amy, thank you so much for being with us today. Gold bombs just keep dropping, but we'll have you on again in the future. Thank you for giving today. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for teaching us how the body works, how the brain works, how marriages work, how success works, and it all comes down to knowing yourself and how to be challenged in the right way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.